What's up, y'all? It's a beautiful day where I am. As you can see, the moon, half moon, or whatever, way up there. Barely any clouds in the sky. Beautiful. Uh, I was just talking to a dude I know, and he said something about his wife need to be more submissive to him, and um, I've heard it said before. So I and he attends church and all that stuff. So I was like, is that in the Bible somewhere? Or because I hear a lot of people quote it. I've heard females quote it. I've heard different people say different things, uh, and they use that phrase a lot. So I was curious because he was saying the reason him and his wife were having conflict is because of her lack of submission. And I've heard females who say they just need to be more submissive and their husbands would do right, do better by them in the household or whatever. Then I've heard some females whose parents were on the brink of divorce, so they were up and down. Their parents were up and down about divorce, and uh, one of the females just happened to say that if she snapped on her mom, kind of, and was like, if you would just, she told her mom her mom would just be more submissive, her mom and dad wouldn't be going through all those problems. So I finally asked, now all the people that I mentioned, well, some of them, they attend church or are members of some religion. And so I finally asked one of them, like, can you tell me where you found, what book you found that in? Is it in the Quran, the Bible? Tell me what your source for frequently quoting that is. So one person gave me in the King James version of the Bible. They told me it was in the book of First Peter, chapter 3, and it's within the first 7 verses. So I'm just gonna show that briefly. So you see it there for yourself. You can look at it for yourself. It's a lot in these verses. He was saying mainly the first 7 verses discuss it. So it begins by telling the wives certain ways they need to live and flow amongst their husbands, and it goes on and on. Into the 7th verse, it says, likewise, you husbands dwell with your wives according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel. And I've heard a lot of men say, oh, that's just how women are. Like, even when I've been going through something with a female and I try to talk to a male or a male that's older than me about it, and they may be, oh, she's just being a woman. Like, they're quick to dismiss it. They don't even give it thought. Like, oh, she's just being emotional. She's just being a woman. You just got to get her in line, put her in check, And it never really resonated with me. Like, I didn't get why they just dismissed it to her being overly emotional. Like, the female's always wrong in every instance. I mean, surely that can't be the case, because that would be like saying every marriage that's failed, it's been a woman's fault. And we all know that that's far from the truth. So, it says, giving honor to the wife in verse 7, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. Now, a lot of people will tell a couple that's not married but who's living together. I've heard phrases like, you don't need to be shacking. And I asked the guy who told me where this passage was, where shacking is in the Bible, and he could not show it to me, like that actual word. I didn't want to paraphrase, like, because a lot of people come at people quoting this kind of stuff that they don't need to be shacking, and uh, he couldn't find it in the scripture. I mean, you somebody that's listening to this, you can holler at me if you have actually seen that phrase in the way that people use it to say you shouldn't be staying with somebody uh, who you're dating or whatever. You shouldn't be living together and you're not married. That's how they define shacking. But the same ones that will tell you that if you look at their marriage, if you look in their eyes, you can see the misery, the sorrow, the unhappiness in their lives revolving, it seems, around their household and their marriage. And I personally, when I think of all the people that I'm acquainted with that are married, if I am around them long enough and they've been married long enough, I don't see too many that are actually like truly happy, like an ongoing happiness. Now, every relationship has its difficulties and challenges, so I'm not speaking from a naive or superficial standpoint. I'm just talking about the ones that really push on someone else that they should get married for whatever reason, because the female is pregnant, or just because they don't need to be living together before they get married. But then when you ask them, well, how happy are they in their marriage, or are they actually happy? And you look them in the eyes and really just allow them to express themselves. And usually, in most cases, before you even ask them, they'll probably come to you if y'all are at that level of a relationship or friendship, so to speak. They'll probably come to you with issues in their marriage, with problems. And if you have been around them long enough, it's probably the same recurring problem. It probably goes in cycles. It's up and down. It's usually from the same source. The problem usually comes from the same source, where there's some insecurity, some issue of distrust, or what have you. But when I talk to a lot of males, they tend to always blame the issues in the marriage on the woman. And they they reference this verse in a lot of cases, saying it's just because she's the weaker one, she's inferior. So it makes me question, when people are so, males especially, are so quick to use this verse out of context without even really digging into all that it entails. Is it any wonder why women collectively, not all, but a lot, have gone from what they were told submission means to this rageful that's fueling a lot of the feminist movement nowadays? And I'm not saying all feminists are full of rage, but it's certain sects, certain subsets of the feminist movement that are just totally enraged, and they're speaking on toxic masculinity and these different things. And I question, were they in a bad relationship with a male or traumatized by some male, whether it was someone they dated or father, grandfather, uncle? Like, what took place? How were scriptures, how were things that are considered sacred and holy used against women and feminine energy to destroy or beat down or make them feel inferior, based on this verse being taken out of context and misused to manipulate and control a woman into submission or bowing down to the will of the male that she was currently involved in? Because I've heard women who were in relationships with men. They were married and had children by the male, and the male would. There was one female I've known that her husband would sporadically just leave and not say where he was going. And I'm not talking for a day or two, like sometimes months at a time. Sometimes he would stay gone for a year, and he might tell her the state he was in, but she didn't know who he was with. He really didn't give any accountability. And um, he would only come back when she mentioned that she was going to like go to school for something or do something to self-improve. Anytime she was about to show herself some love and try to get herself on her feet, become more self-sufficient, more uh, self-sustained, the moment he thought or she indicated that she was going to make a move to not be codependent upon him, he would come back then. But before he would come back, she would be talking to me or one of her female friends or something, and she would say, he does me wrong like this, and he's done it over the years, but I can't leave him because that's my husband, and I have to show submission to him. So I really question like what submission means to different people, how this verse has been one of the things that fueled the feminist movement to the point of just being enraged with masculine energy, period, and a hatred for males, a resentment and a bitterness towards males. And ultimately, it's a lot in these first 6 verses. It's a lot in these first 7 verses, but the end result, and this is what I asked the dude, I was like, the ultimate result that it seems like this passage is saying is that you all are heirs together of the grace of life. And you're supposed to be honoring each other so that your prayers aren't hindered. Now, a lot of the issues and the suffering that goes on between married couples, especially those in particular religions that promote marriage, how is it that the religions that have the most, that promote being married before you live together, all these things, have some of the highest statistics when it comes to adultery, cheating, domestic violence, and ultimately divorce? Is it that their prayers are being hindered because the woman doesn't have a clear definition of what submission means? The woman or the man really doesn't have a clear definition of what submission means. Is it that the man or the male is misusing the verse to make the woman feel inferior, and ultimately he's beginning to act as her God instead of actually God being her God? Is somebody or both parties involved taking the verses out of context? Do they even know where the verses are and how to really dissect them to get to the ultimate goal, which is the last sentence, that you being heirs together of the grace of life, your prayers be not hindered? And I asked this dude, like, are the issues that are going on in his house, as the things that he's praying or asking for or looking for or goals that he's set, that he feels like is always some kind of obstacle coming up that's preventing those goals from being accomplished? And does he think it's directly related to his wife being weaker or inferior? Or is it an issue with him and the way that he's treating his wife? Is he really honoring her according in a way? Is he lifting her up in a way to where he's loving her and showing her like, hey, we have a heritage or an inheritance together to the grace of life? And that's a lot, even in that little portion of that verse. But ultimately, the prayers, it looks like the prayers are supposed to grant access to both the husband and the wife to the grace or an abundance of life. So y'all let me know what you think in the comments. I'd love to further discuss this topic in more detail. Um, check out the links down below for further ways to contact, interact with me. Appreciate your time. Have a good day.